Like this. No, you gotta up at the banner.
Move over that way, Jim, look at Jerry.
Even the giraffe.
No, no, no. For some respect. Let me get your phone up. Here.
Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started with the program. Karibu, which is Swahili for welcome. We're glad you're here, and we're glad to be able to share this time with you to share a tremendous experience that our group of folks had, and some of you have had as well. We want to begin with some devotion. So let us begin with a word of prayer. Gracious Lord, your word is a lamp lighting our path, a mirror reflecting ourselves, a shield providing us refuge, a fire burning for justice and truth. Open our ears and hearts to your word and to all the cries of the needy. Breathe into your church the mighty Spirit of Christ, that heeding your voice we may be strengthened to serve wherever we are called. Bless our gathering this night as we hear about your people and this congregation's ministry in Tanzania. Even more, bless the people of Tanzania, the Door of Hope and the High Institute of Technology, that they continue to know your presence among them. Open us up to experience their witness of faith and hope. Bless Pidge and godparents for Tanzania in the faithful work they do. In Christ's name we serve and pray. Amen. As part of the devotions, we're going to be introducing you to the girls of Door of Hope as they sing some songs for us.
Thank you, my Lord. Thank you, my Jesus. Wherever I am now, is just by your grace. Many are thy Lord, many are perishing. Wherever I am now, is just by your grace.
Just precious. A reading from the Gospel of Matthew. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will gather before him, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, who are members of my family, you did it to me." Sing another song.
We need to go back to the slides.
Happy today, so happy. In Jesus' name, I'm happy because He has taken away my sins. And I'm happy, so happy today.
When they sing, they're happy, they really are happy. All right, we'll save that one. Just a couple of words before we get into the rest of the slides, because there are so many images and experiences from our journey, and we could be here all night just scratching the surface, and I know none of us wants that. But you will hear from the rest of our group as we walk through the pictures. And there's some papers on your table. I hope everyone has those that might be helpful to the story. I just want to share two brief images from our journey. The first has to do with Mount Kilimanjaro. For almost our entire trip, the top of the mountain was covered with clouds. So we were not able to see the majesty of that snow-covered peak. We knew it was there. At least we've been told it was there. It's just that we couldn't see it for ourselves. A couple of days before the trip was to end, however, the clouds were swept away, and we excitedly got to see that beautiful sight. It was as though the mountaintop had broken through, perhaps because it knew we were about to leave. Sometimes I think our experience of God is like that. We know God is there, we are told God is there, but sometimes it's difficult to see God. our vision is covered over. But then there are those times when the clouds dissipate because of some experience or through the witness of other people, and we see God like never before. This trip was like that for me, and I suspect others would say the same. Not only that, but sometimes we're not able to see the world or other people very clearly because of assumptions we make or biases we have or just a narrow view of the world. This trip was like breaking through all of those clouds of not knowing. I think we were opened up not only to the way other people live, the way other people are, but to the faith and generosity and joyfulness of a part of God's creation that had been clouded over for us. The trip was a breaking through those clouds to see some really beautiful people and really wonderful parts of God's created world. The second image I would share occurred at the Door of Hope. The young ladies sang many songs for us. Some were in English, some were in Swahili. And I asked Pastor Johnson the meaning of one of the Swahili songs. He said that the words the girls were singing to us meant this. Technical difficulties.
That wasn't a never-ending button.
There's power in this place. So he explained what one of the songs they were singing meant. And he said it meant, Emmanuel means God is with you. You being here means God is with us. And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful song. And thinking about that reading from Matthew, in some ways I felt like we, the visitors, were the least of these, being ministered to by that community of faith. In other ways, this ministry of Trinity, the Door of Hope and the High Institute, are a way of us ministering to the least of these, a way of ministering to Christ. Indeed, you, through your support of this ministry, are Emmanuel, God with them. Let us pray. Holy God, holy Emmanuel, your magnificent creation springs forth from your word. You sent us Jesus, your word, to renew your world, to heal the sick, feed the hungry, proclaim your mercy, and call us to faith and faithful service. Nourish us with the spirit of your word, that we may grow in grace, bearing fruits of redemption, and sharing your strength and hope with all the world. Be with us in our serving, our caring, and our sharing. In Christ's name, amen. That sound you hear, what's it called again? Ululation. They do that with their tongue. It's a Maasai way of saying, I'm joyful, expressing joy. And so it's a wonderful sound and a wonderful meaning. I want to thank the hospitality folks for providing and helping with the meal tonight. You all do a wonderful job, and we thank you very much for helping with that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Becky Fuzzi, and I want to thank her. She spent a lot of time going through all the pictures and putting together at least a taste of it for you tonight. And so I want to thank you, Becky, for all that hard work and let you take over.
That was really my pleasure. I also want to thank Smith, Cheney, and Joel for all the support that they gave us throughout trying to pull this together. It was wonderful. So if we can go back to the slides. Pidge wanted to welcome us. She's still in Tanzania, and you'll have to be very quiet because this isn't very loud.
There you go.
Hi everybody, this is Pidge in Tanzania, and I bring you greetings from all our brothers and sisters here in Tanzania. I'm sorry that I can't be with you at this OMG because I'm still here in Tanzania, but I'm sure everyone will make it an OMG to remember.
So this next piece is going to talk a little bit about the ministry that we're involved in Tanzania. And something that was unclear to me was I've been hearing about Godparents of Tanzania and High Institute and Door of Hope, but I didn't know how they were related. Well, the High Institute and the Door of Hope are actually a part of Godparents for Tanzania. And you'll see a couple of familiar faces up there. This is the board of directors. The second gentleman is Dwayne Westerman, and he started Godparents for Tanzania. And somebody on the far right joined and then has been kind of helping, or she and somebody else decided to work on the Door of Hope. The third gentleman is Pastor Yotham Baha, and I know you've heard Pidge speak of him. And the young lady next to Pastor Baha is Kristen Westerman, Dwayne's daughter, and she is carrying the torch for him right now in Tanzania. In fact, she was there while we were there. So I want to move on to the High Institute. The High Institute of Technology was founded by Peniel Shalley, and when Pidge became involved, it really blossomed. And this is a technical institute, and it helps young people begin on a path to having a job at some point, a good paying job, hopefully. Right now, there are 4 instructors, and from left to right, the first lady teaches electronics, the next gentleman masonry, then automotive repair, and then computer IT. Before that even happens, often they have to learn Swahili, English, and rudimentary computer skills, and also some skills that will help them get a job, like how to make a resume and how to use email, how to communicate. So they're classes that that happen before they get to move on to their chosen path. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There we go. This is a certificate of partnership between High Institute and Trinity. And I'm not going to focus too much on it, but I just want to underscore the fact that Trinity really has been probably the major donor that has supported this wonderful ministry. So this is what you would see if you walked into the electronics classroom. First of all, the books are pretty much papers on the wall, as you can see up there on the left. And the instructor is pointing to a few other pictures that are up on the wall. And they have things on the table there where they can practice some rudimentary electronic skills. And then when they get to a certain point, then they will partner with a company that provides those services and learn even more. And the same thing happens with computer skills. Although they learn some rudimentary skills, they were using CAD when we walked in. So that's way beyond my ken. So I think that's pretty amazing. So these folks are on their way to becoming IT professionals. Automotive repair is very important in Tanzania. You should see the roads. And there are tires everywhere used for seating and who knows what. So they'll have a job. So you see that there's an engine there that they practice on, and then there's a truck behind you, and then there was another vehicle. There's not a lot, but they do practice their initial skills for automotive repair. And I was really impressed with masonry because these young people are learning to make sure that the blocks that they put in there are absolutely straight, both vertically and horizontally. And they use tools that you wouldn't believe. You know, they made their own plumb lines. They stretched string out with a tiny little level, which was very tiny, but they are making sure that everything's right. And the concrete they mix, they're very careful about getting it put in there correctly, and also that the consistency is correct. And this gentleman on the right is teaching those skills to them. This is somewhat where they live. The building in the top left is the kitchen and dining room. The young lady down in the bottom left is cooking on the kitchen stove, which is a wood burning stove. There's no electricity there at high. They've got some solar power, but they are for a few lights, but nothing for the kitchen. In fact, that stove really needs to be replaced. So, and then in the middle, you see where they sleep. And on the right-hand side, this is a dormitory built by funding from Trinity, awaiting more female students. It's going to be a female dormitory. And there are 2 young ladies attending this institute right now, but they are traveling from home rather than using that facility at this time. This little square in the bottom would be where they would live. It's tiny, but it works. Actually, it's a lot better than many things that we've seen in terms of living facilities. So, and this is really cool. This on the left is a building around a well, and you see the solar panels above there. The one thing they have been able to do is to power the water that comes from the well. It goes over to this water tower, and then from there, it goes to every single place in all the washrooms in the campus. So they are beginning to use some more technology powered by the sun. And if they weren't doing that, the cost of the utilities would prevent them from doing some of the services that they're providing for these students. Yeah, that's one of the computers and the lights in the classroom are the 2 things that the solar panels power. Yeah, solar panels. Yeah, they do not take advantage of the electrical services provided by the government because it's very expensive for them. So Pitch has a few more words to say to Forrest.
$750 a year provides a scholarship for 1 student to go to school here at High. It covers room and board, teacher salaries, and any equipment they need for teaching purposes.
And it's a 2.
So what she said was $750 a year for a commitment of 2 years provides funding for a student to go to High Institute. And it provides everything: the food, their lodging, their clothing, the salary for the teachers. It's really all inclusive. So that tiny little amount can really fund a lot. And there's our group. We had a wonderful time there. And we're going to move on now to the Door of Hope. On your table, if you'll just make sure that you've had a chance to glance at the 2 handouts that we have. One is the beginning of the Door of Hope. And it is such a poignant and wonderful story, but it's lengthy, so it's in writing. You'll have to read it because I'm not going to reiterate it. I think you may have seen something from the email that gave us a taste, and then the longer version is on your table. So the other thing I forgot to mention is if you have questions, because we don't want to keep you until 9 tonight, I would appreciate it if you'd write down the questions so you remember them, and we will have a question and answer session after we get done with all the slides. Does that sound reasonable? I guess reasonable or not. So at the very beginning, the Door of Hope was really started by Reverend Johnson and Pidge Morgan. And the story is, like I said, it's on the table for you to read. And it's just a wonderful story. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. But they started the Door of Hope. And you can see behind you that Pidge's husband, Bob, his company was able to fund the first building on the grounds, the Maasai dormitory, and it was dedicated in 2006, 2007, and the girls were able to move in 2008. And our own Reverend Gary Scheit dedicated that dormitory. So just a couple of facts that you might want to know. There are currently 7 girls, I should say 9, but 7 girls that reside at the Door of Hope all the time. I was under the impression that this was a school as well as a home, but it is not. It's a home. This home is located at such a distance from the Maasai tribes where they came from that they don't show up there. And they have security and so on, but they do go to primary school. They can't go there until they learn Swahili because they speak Maasai. And it's a completely different language. So they have to learn Swahili and English. And I kept wondering, do the girls know what they're singing? Because they were singing pretty well in English. So I don't know the answer to that. But the 7 girls are in primary school. And there are 2 matrons on staff that take care of them. One is an evangelist and the other is a teacher. And due to some governmental snafus, teachers weren't hired for a period of about 5 years. And now they're hiring again, but they're hiring the ones that are just coming out of college. So this young lady really doesn't have a chance to be a teacher in a school, but she's doing a wonderful job with these children. There are 2 girls boarding in secondary school, and it is imperative that they are boarded once again for the security, and also so they don't have to spend a lot of time walking to school. So they come home back to the Door of Hope. That is their home. So any holidays or any free time, they do come back, and the little girls absolutely love them, and they all want to crawl in bed with the older girls. 2 girls are in college. One is pursuing a degree in business entrepreneurship, and the other is actually doing her practicum at the first lodge that we spent time in, and you'll see a picture of her at the end. And one has finished college and is opening a beauty salon or salon. As you're traveling around Tanzania, you're going to see about half of the beauty school or beauty salons called saloons. And I didn't personally go in, but I don't think they serve anything that would make you think it's a saloon. So, there we go. Okay, this is the greeting we get the minute they know we're coming. A little more of that joyful ululation. The gentleman you see on the right is Julius. Julius does both security and the gardening, and they do have a garden that does produce some for them. The problem is right now that there's a path behind there that is open to other people, and some of their produce disappears, and they're getting ready to try to resolve that issue. So this is our second visit, and the reason you can tell that is because some of you have these on your tables, but these were a gift from the girls, and you're going to see that the girls wrapped each one of us in one of these. And it has some writing on there, and I know that my friend Richard Carbaugh can tell me what that means. What the writing on the set on the
One of them reads, "I stand with love, God is on my side." But another one has different words.
right, and I think I see it here. I think you put it here so I could say something. The other one says, "Oh God, I call on your name, so I will be yours forever." So not only was it a wonderful, sweet gift, but it has a poignant meaning as well. So this is our second visit. Okay, this is, did I go too far? Nope, I guess. I'm not really good at this. Apparently, I need to go back to school. Okay, this is the Door of Hope compound. I'm going to show you two quick videos. They're sort of a 360-degree view of what is in the compound. You'll see the white gate there on the left. We've already gone through another gate. So when I show you this, I think it's going to start on the other side. This is where there are some gardens, but no buildings here. And you'll see real quickly at the very end that there's a red gate that we came through initially. And that's all that's there. And then on the other side are all the buildings. This is sort of the dining area and kitchen. And that red door goes out toward the back where the gardens are, where other produce is grown. And here are the girls. Every year, Pidge gets a picture of all the girls that she is interviewing and checking on, and that's from this year on the left. And she gets the picture done at Stella Maris, which is the lodge that we went to first, and it's also where that young lady who graduated is doing her practicum. So the Carbas are sponsoring this young lady, and I know there are many other people here in the, that are sponsoring one of the girls as well.
If I could just say a quick word
Mhm,
on that.
please.
We have been blessed to be able to sponsor Namayaki, who's in the middle there. And I just wanted to say that you'll have an opportunity to think about that as well. But we spend money on a lot of things. And I just have to say that there's nothing that we've spent money on that has brought us more joy, more satisfaction, more blessing than sponsoring this young lady. She is wonderful, and she will now have a future that she would not have otherwise had. So I hope that others will consider doing that as well. And we'll say more about that later, but she's a wonderful young lady.
Thank you very much. If you have read that epistle, you'll realize that what these girls are being saved from are things like female circumcision, forced marriage, rape, just no electricity where they live, no chance of really getting an education. And so this is just a wonderful opportunity to have them here. And it requires sponsorship really for them to be able to do this. So these are the grounds in the back. You can see the girls walking down this path, and on their left is where a lot of the produce is grown. And this little bridge here was a total bridge and was built by Trinity, actually, but it's been pilfered for firewood. And the water you see, which looks really inviting, is sewage. And so they do have Plan B in mind for preventing people from taking their produce and whatnot. And they're going to let that bridge go and build a different access point. And this is the kitchen. So once again, the same kind of stove you saw at the High Institute, and not much more. That's all they have for providing food. And this is where the girls sleep. So sometimes they really like to sleep together. The youngest girls really like to sleep with the older girls, but there is enough room for each of them to have their own bed. And there are 2 other rooms in the dormitory, each of which is equipped with a table for them to do their studies on. Last time we were there, the plan was one of the girls and do some drawings with them and get to know them a little bit. They wanted to look at our phones. They wanted pictures that we've taken of them, and so that's really what happened. You can see that all of them have a phone in their hand. I'll bet they learn how to use it better than I can. So the time with the girls was just, I mean, it was so, I can't even express how wonderful it was to spend time with them. They're loving and grateful. It's just incredible. Incredible that they can be so happy with so little. Now you're going to see that each of us was wrapped in one of these wonderful shawls that have those wonderful sayings about God on them, and how kind they were to do that. I'm sorry, Cindy, you're right. I didn't get you. I apologize. I'll wrap you up in a little bit. So both times that we were able to go and spend some time with them, some gifts were given to them. Some of our teachers and interested parties bought some backpacks and tablets and what else, Cindy? Pens, colored and pencils and all kinds of things, and put them in there for them. And the second time, we kind of pulled some money together and bought them fruit because, once again, their produce area is rather depleted. And they were very, very grateful for that. But we were the ones that really benefited from that.
Forever, forever, I love you, Jesus, forever.
I'm working on composure here. So, yes, the girls are going to be in our hearts forever. And this is our graduate from the Door of Hope, who is now in college and is doing her practicum at the Stella Maris Lodge. And I think that's it for this slide presentation, Smith. So if you could pull up the next one. While he's doing that, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about sponsorship. For the girls, it's a little pricier than it is for the High Institute. Requires $2,500 a year for a 5-year commitment in order for the girls, for a new girl to go to school. Now, Godparents for Tanzania is not encouraging any more sponsorship except for the Door of Hope right now. There are 9 girls that currently have a bed there, and the facility can accept as many as 20. And they would be, you know, as we talked about, there's a lot that they would be saved from. So $2,500 times 5 years is the commitment to sponsor a girl, and that takes care of their food and clothing and everything. So, and another thing, you don't have to bear that burden alone. Get a friend and split it, or get a group, one of your ministries, and split it up if you're interested at all. So I just wanted to plant those seeds. And then I want to introduce all of the people that went on this wonderful trip with us. So I'd like you to just stand up if you would. Richard and Cindy Carbaugh, Robin and Christy Polk, Lisa and Hayden Newell, and they're not estranged. They're Andy and Tina Williams, and then my roommate Martha Dean is unable to be with us, and then I was the last wheel. So thank you very much. You may want to look at your itinerary page because I'm going to have to breeze through this really quickly. I see it's 5 after 7. I have about 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to speed it up really quick. But a lot of what I would say is actually on that itinerary sheet. So I'm going to breeze through this as quick as I can. So Tropeaks is the company that provided our transportation. And Thomas, the gentleman on the left, was a graduate of the High Institute, and he started this company. And Pitch won't use any other company, and she won't really go unless Freddie and Samwell, the drivers that we use, are involved, because they're incredibly wonderful. So this is what that Stella Maris Lodge that I mentioned looks like. It was beautiful. It was a wonderful place to stay. We had the first day, we had lunch in Moshi at a coffee place. And then we went shopping. Some people shopped a little more than others. So this is Rachel's place, and she has this tiny little stall with 120 million bits of garments, which you'll see on all of us. This is where we purchased most of that. And you'll see Pidge over there smiling because when she also took us to the Blue Zebra, which is a place where you can get tanzanite. And as long as Pidge has been going there, she didn't have a piece of tanzanite. So not even being aware that her birthday was coming up, we pulled some money and got her a giraffe because that's her animal with a little piece of tanzanite on it. And she's very, very tickled about that. So then I'm not going to further go on into anything about the High Institute because we said a lot about that in the Door of Hope. But on the 23rd, we went to a place called Gibbs Farm. Now it's a place that has a restaurant and lodging. Lodging is a little bit out of our wallet size, so we didn't stay there. But it's a self-sustaining farm as well. They grow coffee, and they do sell their coffee, but most everything else is used for their restaurant and for their guests. And so there's just a couple of bits of some pictures that you can see, get a glimpse of what it was like. The gentleman that you see gave us quite a lot of history about the coffee growing there. And we also had another loo with a view. This is actually on the left, and then the third picture, those are actually restrooms. And yes, they do have doors, but once you walk out to wash your hands, they're wide open. Excuse me, I did it again. Okay, this was lunch. So Andy and Cindy Andy had a thing about yogurt. He wasn't interested in yogurt, and I think there was a problem with the hibiscus flower, but anyway, the two of them had a bite of the hibiscus flower with yogurt on it. And that was the big treat. So after we left Gibbs Farm, we went to Pamoja Lodge, and that's where this is. And we're greeted by Maasai men doing their traditional Maasai dance. So after that, the next several days, we went on game drives. We went on the Narango crater the first day, and we just saw a wonderful lot of beautiful, beautiful animals, and we're able to just worship God for his creation. So here are some of the first ones we saw. The giraffe you would recognize, and then there's a wildebeest, eland antelope, and then I know that the one on the right is probably difficult to figure out, right? He was an old lion. They have the darker manes. And then we saw the big five. I guess that's what you want to do if you're on a safari. So we saw the elephant. We saw the rhino bottom left at such a distance that that's the best picture we have of him. But you can see his little horns. So we really did see him. And the wildebeest. And you see that panther in that tree? We only saw bits and pieces of panther. Or leopards, because they're nocturnal and they were taking naps most of the time when we were seeing them. And then we saw plenty of lions, but this one was kind of a special guy because these lion cubs are his. And there's Mama Lion over on the left, and then two pictures over there. This is beneath the tree. These cubs are right beneath the tree that the daddy lion was sitting in. On the far right, you're going to see a mommy cheetah with her baby hanging on to her. And then the other picture is just a baby cheetah with all that fuzz. So this is a baby buffalo and a baby baboon. Those are the babies. And then we saw bunches of animals with different words for what kind of animal they are. So herds of buffalo, dazzles of zebras. There's a big dazzle of zebra all the way to the right, and a core of giraffe, a parade of elephants, a herd of gazelles, a thunder of hippos, I'm not making this up, and a flock of flamingos. Say that twice. And one place that we stayed was really in the Serengeti. It was called Into the Wild, and this is what we got to see. We saw some calisthenics going on that morning. these are a type of antelope called the topi, and we did have quite a little laugh at how cute they were prancing around. And this is what our accommodations look like. So that big tent there, it is about the size of most of the tents. On the left is our living area, and then the facility area, shower, wash, and restroom, and then your bedroom. So yeah, it wasn't tough. Okay, I think I finally got it. And this is what we were greeted with: some beverages, a fire, and a beautiful sunset. And this is what we saw the evening of, and then the next morning. Zebras were walking around across our porches, and the giraffe were right next to where Lisa was staying. It was just incredible to wake up in the morning and see them so close. Then we went on a balloon safari. So this balloon, the basket held 16 people in compartments of 4 each. So we could look down and see, once again, herds of animals. So elephants, and those are gazelles. The elephants weren't really happy to have us above them. So in fact, they sort of would walk away, and then two of the elephants stood there with their trunks up and challenged us to come down, and they wanted to take a piece of us, but that didn't happen. So this is what happened when we landed. So you can see Pidge was really happy to get out of the balloon, and the guy with a champagne bottle on his head told us all about why champagne is part of how you celebrate the end of your balloon thing, and you'll have to ask me later if you want to know. And we also had Lou with a view there, but it was a whole different kind of situation. And bottom right is where we are drinking our champagne. And then the last night, we were into the wild. I'm sorry that you're not going to be able to see this whole celebration, but these guys over on the left danced and sang for 25 minutes. It was incredible, and they weren't quiet. It was amazing. And then they presented Pidge with a cake. And of course, we all got to help with that. So the next day, we went to see Pastor Yotha Baha, where his office is, and then he took us on a home visit to this lady. The lady in the third picture is a widow. She had 3 children. Both her son and daughter graduated from graduated from the High Institute. Both were in college. He finished, got his teaching degree, and vanished. And she really was depending on him to come home and help her, and that's not happening. And her her older daughter is in college, and Renata, her little girl over on the left, is still in secondary school. So we had a really lovely visit there. We pulled any food that we had left, and we had lots of food left. So we gave that to them. This is inside her sort of mud hut, which is where they live. In the middle, there are 2 different pictures of where they sleep, eat, and have all their belongings, and cook, and that's where their chickens reside. And on the right is sort of the entryway, and on the left is a rather large area, but that's where the goats sleep at night. So it gets a little crowded in there. So after we saw them, we went to lunch at Pastor Baha's place, and that's his house in the middle, and his family prepared this luscious food for us, and we all got to eat either on the porch, except for somebody had to eat with the kids. So that was Robin, but he seemed to enjoy it. And this is the moment when we want you to see one of the wonderful gifts that we were presented. So you'll see that on the back of each of these, it says sharing is caring. The only one that doesn't say that was Pidge's, and it was a little bit misspelled. Thank you. But it served its purpose. So that was just, it was really heartwarming that these people who have so little wanted to give us gifts. And all the purses and bags that you see up here were also gifts from from Reverend Baha. It was just incredible. Thank you. Smith has a big job. Okay, after that we went to the Isoatok. This is also a tent camp. It means the land of rocks, and I can tell you that you can't step anywhere without stepping on a rock. And it's very different from many of the other places that we were at. But once again, it was definitely glamping because there's the bar, there's one of the tents, there's our dining area, which is really wonderful to be eating outside like that. And this is what happens. The two pictures you see on the either side are inside my tent. So beds in one room, and then look at that shower facility. Isn't that pretty? Except that, if you want to shower, you have to call and say, well, you have to go and tell somebody, I'd like to shower at 6, and they will fill your bucket with warm water. And then you pull on the chain and get a little water, soap up, pull the chain, and then go, can somebody go get them again? Because I need a little more water. And in the middle is the Wi-Fi building, which is where that's the one place you can call your husband or and charge your phone and really just have a good time with your friends, because we spent some time in there. So next to the Isoatok campground is a Maasai village, and they have a relationship with each other. Part of what the Isoatok camp does is to help provide the Maasai village with water. Now, the Maasai are normally nomadic, but there's been kind of a dearth. There hasn't been enough water lately, so they tend to sort of settle down sometimes if they have access to water. So they have settled down here. Now, a boma is a village where a headman has several wives, and the wives each build their own hut and have the babies. And, if you're a male that comes along afterwards, once you have a wife or two, you can start your own boma. So this is the kind of place that they live in. And once again, look at these lovely little children. They're so happy to see us, and what they want is a little blessing. So we were told to say "sopai," and they were supposed to say "ipa." How quickly we forget. Okay, so this is on either side is what you see on the inside of the very, very dark hut made mostly of cow something. And this is an unfinished hut because the son of the headman recently got married. He has one wife right now, and she's in the middle of building her hut. So she hasn't put the other stuff on the outside yet. The men do the one thing they do is to bring the sticks. So the women have to do everything else, and other women will help. After the next day, after we got to see, or that same day, we got to go on a medicine walk with Reuben. Reuben is a Maasai warrior. He's also a Christian, and he has one wife, and he has been helping the surrounding villages to learn how to properly use the restroom, because they don't have restrooms, and to avoid polluting water, they really needed some instruction. They provided the headman with a tiny little solar panel so he could use a telephone. They provide them with water, and they provide them with a school so they have education for their children. And that's that symbiotic relationship with the Isoatok camp. And in return, they let people like us visit them. Then we went to a cultural arts center. And you see that we had a couple of stars on the left. And this is a Lutheran college, and this is the part of the Lutheran college that deals with arts and music. And this young lady took us around and showed us about 20 different instruments. And then these folks gave us a little taste of what you could do when you were young. So these are all instructors, but also professional dancers. And here's when we got to see Mount Kilimanjaro. You can see the clouds are beneath that. I think it's very difficult to ever see the entire mountain, but most of the time the clouds are obscuring the top of it. So we finally got to see that, and thankfully we have a couple of people that are good with a camera, or we would have never gotten those pictures. After that, we went to see the ancient Chaga caves. This is another tribe different from the Maasai. They live in a very lush area up on a mountain. And partway up on a mountain, they make coffee and sell it. And the hut that you see there is where they usually live. They live it's very similar, except the products that they use to make this hut are a little bit different. About the same size, however. But when they had been used to being attacked by mostly Maasai tribes and maybe some other tribes, and they dug these caves over about a 5-year period, and they did a really beautiful job so that they could detect anybody else who came down through the cave system, and they had tools to dispatch them with or to interrogate them with. So those are, you'll see a couple of pictures of the caves right there. And that other picture is where they keep their food. Okay, and we got to help make coffee. We had a wonderful time with that, and then got to drink it, and I have to tell you, it was really good. And then we went on a waterfall hike, one of which you can see top right. It took a flying leap head first into the waterfall. And the other one, bottom left, actually at the very top, but we had a wonderful time. And last but not least, July 3rd, which is our last real day there, happened to be Pidge's birthday, and everybody wanted to get on the celebration. The woman got 3 cakes. The purple cake that you see over there was made by Freddie, our driver's wife, who made the most beautiful cake for her. And the tradition was that if you get a cake, you give a piece to everybody. No, you don't hand it to them. You put it in their mouth. And so she went around and gave everybody a piece of cake in that manner. Cutting her cake. And that is the end of the presentation. And I got done before 7:30. Thank you very much for listening all the way through all of that. And that's just scratching the surface. And now I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions. If you have questions, Richard will be happy to answer them. Or one of us will.
As we do any questions, I ask that you raise your hand. I'll bring the mic to you. And if our lovely presenters wouldn't mind going to that mic over there to answer their question, that would be very helpful. You have a question? Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Okay.
Tina wants to understand that they may never see that child again. Girls are discouraged from going back ever, because if they step foot in the camp, the headman may marry them off to somebody right there. So now the parents can visit them, but they can't come to the Door of Hope. They would be given an opportunity to go to another place and meet the girl there. That was great. Thank you. Oh, Andy knows the answer to this, but what is the value by how many cows? You know, that somebody had to pay for the girl. And I think it starts at 2, doesn't it? And go up from there. That's for marriage, yeah. Yeah, we don't have to pay them in cattle for girls going to the Door of Hope. Do you want to field a few questions? I feel like I'm hogging the mic. Anybody want to?
I did not see any evidence of the drought, and I heard so much about it. Is it still continuing?
There is a rainy season, but the rainy season has been less than it has in the past. And there are places where water is more scarce. The Serengeti is very, very dry. If you were in the car, you would know that there's a cloud of dust that follows you the whole time. And, windows have to go up when we're passing another vehicle. Up in where the chaga live, no problem there, but the altitude is a little bit different. So that may account for it.
And there were trucks, government trucks often that would be delivering water to some of the rural communities that didn't have wells, that kind of thing.
How are the girls identified and chosen to go to Door of Hope?
So Reverend Johnson actually gives Pidge a list of girls where the agreement with the parents is already in place that they could go if they were chosen. And of course, you have to have a sponsor to be able to do that. But and then Pidge gets the unenviable job of having to select the child. And the last one she selected was very young, and she had some difficulties with her teeth and her mouth. And her parents had passed away. Her grandparents were taking care of her, and they had more on their hands than they could really deal with. So that's a lot. That's commonly what begins that process.
The girl we're sponsoring, they don't really know who her parents are. And so I think it was a grandparent that made the arrangements there. Cindy's saying a lot of the parents die of AIDS as well. So, and that's a ministry they're trying to educate in the Maasai villages about how to help with the AIDS issues there.
I got the sweetest letter from the little girl I'm sponsoring, and I want to be able to write her back. Do you know how we can do that? And I'd like to send her some pictures of my family.
I really don't know, but Pidge will be home, I think, next week or the week after. Worst case scenario, she can take the letter back with her because she'll be going in January and again in June. I think there probably are some other methods, but we really need to check with her and make certain that we're using the right channels if it's possible.
And I just want to add, we sort of said this before, but this congregation is, as you probably know, is blessed to have Pidge. I mean, this ministry that she does there and the people, the contacts that she has, and we didn't go anywhere unless people knew who Pidge was. So it was wonderful to watch her in action there and to see all the ministry that she's doing there.
And I also want to say that Trinity has done so much for the ministry. All the buildings in the Door of Hope grounds were funded by Trinity. So that was amazing in and of itself. And so many other things have been done besides sponsoring some of the children. Are there any more questions?
I just have a practical question. What was the average daily temperature, and did it vary from place to place?
I think in the 70s, pretty much. Nighttime about 60s. It's winter there when we were there. So about the opposite of what it is here. But the weather was wonderful. The Serengeti, I wouldn't say it was a lot warmer, but it was a little warmer maybe.
Say 80s during the day.
Stayed pretty constant, yeah. It was a lot better than when we came home.
Is there ever any unrest in the area from any political factions around there? Because the area you're in has beautiful areas to it. Is there ever any feelings of danger to these people?
I think there was a problem with Uganda on that border recently, but what I have to tell you is the people are very peaceful. For example, there are probably 3 major religions in the Tanzania people. They intermarry. They don't have a big problem with each other. They don't go to war because of any of that. They really are a very peace-loving people, and we didn't see any signs of violence, except what you hear about in some of the Maasai villages of misogynistic behavior.
Another practical question. What kind of food did they prepare for you?
Pretty good food, really. A lot of, I have alpha gal, so I concentrate on the chicken and fish. The beef, some people chewed that a lot, but a lot of vegetables and fruit. A lot of vegetables and fruit. Yeah. And rice.
This big. I kid you not. We wanted to bring them home. Are there no more questions? I'd like to kind of wrap up with this, just this thought. Pidge is planning on another trip where she would like to take some of you in June of 2024. So if you'd like to consider that, it's a good time to begin to think about it now. And then she can fill you in on some of the details about how that can happen. Thank you very much for all the attention that you paid.
If you wouldn't mind taking your stuff over to the window there as we clean up and pick up. Thank you all again and drive home safely.